Sarada, so great to be back with you for this next episode of Ritucharya.
Likewise, Gabe, good to be here.
What are we covering today?
Today we are talking about Grishma, summer season, um,
Summer.
which seems a little weird because it's rainy and cool here on the north coast. Usually at
Yeah,
this time of year, we're already feeling like we're in summer season, but this year, summer season's yet to come. But it's an intense time of year. We get
it
hot, we
is.
get dry, our kapha energy is depleted. And so the moisture and cooling properties from the atmosphere are less, and yeah, we get hot, we get dry, and we get tired.
Yep,
So I think that sort of that summertime fatigue is a thing. And I
it's
actually
real.
think about well, I actually think about how in the northern hemisphere people take more rest in winter.
Yeah,
And I feel like in the summer heat, we actually need to take our extra rest in summer. I mean,
yeah,
wintertime rest is important. Rest is always important. But in summer, the days are really long, the
yeah.
nights are short. It's almost like we need to divide our day into two and take a
Right.
little rest, like they do in
In
India
the yeah, in India or
after
in South
lunch.
America. Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, let's
Yeah.
Sarada, let's reintroduce this concept of Ritucharya because I think we use these Sanskrit terms, and I think sometimes we forget that our audience is mainly made up of Western thinkers, Australian thinkers. So Ritucharya is just a way of capturing the idea or this practice of adaptation of personalization. I like to actually simplification of the whole thing is just personalization. So understanding who we are as a unique physiology or body mind physiology and our relationship to the characteristics of our environment and
Mm.
trying to bring harmony or working to bring harmony between our own physiology, our own dosha, if you like, or our own fingerprint of health and wellness and the environment in which we live in. So with, as you said earlier, with specific consideration given to the characteristics of summer. So summer's
Mm.
in Ayurveda, summer's this very sort of, as you said, dry, hot, and particularly in Australia, very intense heat at
Mm.
times, irrespective of where you live in the country. We see an increase in the pitta element. So pitta in
Mm.
Ayurveda is mainly fire with a little bit of water. So these are these elemental considerations around the environment. So as you quite rightly said, in summer we tend to see a lot of things like dehydration, lots of skin
Mm.
irritations, digestive issues, and surprisingly, perhaps this idea of fatigue, because we've just come out of this sleepy season. You and I just did spring as an episode, a month or so ago, but we were coming out of that really sleepy season, as you say, where a lot of us do suffer from seasonal affective disorder or fatigue or sluggishness. And then in summer, somewhat contradictory, somewhat sort of paradoxically, we're also experiencing that same fatigue.
Mm. Correct. That's right.
Um,
Um, And I guess in summer, because it is the season of pitta, pitta's already
yep,
hot. Um, it's all about keeping the pitta dosha cool, isn't it?
you
It's
got
all
it.
about sort of trying not to aggravate those symptoms of, irritation, agitation, overheat that comes with that sort of excess of fire.
Yep,
So
yep,
what we're going to talk about today is what sort of foods we should be eating, what sort of beverages, what sort of yoga practice and supplementing lifestyle
yep,
considerations that we can tailor to our individual constitution, bearing
exactly.
in mind that we don't want to aggravate the symptoms of pitta because it's
Yeah,
already hot.
yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, and one of the considerations with the heat in Australia is a lot of us then think, oh, great time to be outside, great time to get
Mm,
in the sun, great
mm,
time to exercise outside. And interestingly enough, Ayurveda says, or great time to have a beer, great time to have a gin
yes.
and tonic.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as we're going to find out, Ayurveda says maybe that's not the best idea. So, as you said, we're
Especially
going to
in
chat
summer.
through
Yeah.
100%, which
Yeah.
which is counter. It's
Mm.
un-Australian. It's
Yes. Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it?
but
Because Christmas and New Year and that big summer holiday, all
it all
it
comes together at the
hits.
same time.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and yes, it's a really interesting insight that when the weather gets hotter, we sort of think we're going to do more vigorous exercise. Ayurveda says, slow it down, folks.
Yep.
Gentle
Yep.
exercise through summer. And in
You got
yoga,
it.
we talk
And
about
I have
cooling postures.
right, with a personal example, like I'm from a body type, I'm Pitta Vata primarily, and so summer is a terrible time of year for me. It's my favorite season, which is interesting because obviously Pitta like attracts like, right? So I love the heat, I love getting outside. Less so now as I'm a bit older, but certainly as a younger person, I loved it. I was outside all the time, the long runs in the sun, all of that kind of stuff. It's actually the worst thing in the world for my constitution and my body type, but
Yeah, it's really
let's
interesting.
let's dig into let me dive into food for a second. So as you
Great.
said, summer is the season of pitta, so it's that very think fire, think a little bit of water. So it's very important for us, particularly the pitta people among us like myself, not to aggravate our natural inclination, right? So what that means practically is to try and get more cooling foods and more alkaline foods into our diet. So when I say cooling foods, Ayurveda says think things like cucumbers, leafy greens, watermelons, mint, that type of thing, and look for sweet, bitter. So bitter tastes, are quite unusual in Australian cuisine, but very common in things like Thai food and so on. Things like apples, pears, broccoli, asparagus, and of course herbs. So garden herbs are really important in Ayurveda. So mint, coriander, fennel, and tulsi. So any Ayurvedic practitioner will say, look, try and cook things like, rice with lentils, with a bit of fennel, a bit of turmeric, a bit of ginger. So a tiny bit of heat, but primarily cooling herbs. And I know you're going to talk a lot about this, but try and focus very heavily on hydration. So
Very much
increasing our
so.
fluid intake, but not increasing things, not necessarily taking things like fruit juices and soft drinks and coffees and teas, but rather favoring things like herbal teas, which I know you're going to talk a lot about, high quality coconut water. And I've actually been adding a lot of sugar-free electrolytes to my routine, which has been really,
Beautiful.
really helpful.
So the dehydration, I think the digestive impact of dehydration, obviously, we stop eliminating completely and then everything slows down.
Yep.
So the hydrating foods, hydrating the watermelon, mangoes, all those beautiful, sweet, juicy, naturally sweet, juicy
Yep.
fruits. And I mean, it's the season we can add a lot more raw into our diet as well, can't we, Gabe? But I love that. Isn't it the bitter greens that are the most cooling? They're energetically most cooling. It's a perfect time to be eating a lot of raw.
So it's the rocket. It's the arugulas. It's the Chinese greens. Exactly.
Yeah, and really loading up on those kale salads and even just the leaves from broccoli. I love broccoli leaves, including those. And just in general, food that is light to digest, because interestingly, our digestive strength is actually not as strong in the heat.
Yes. Yeah, which is somewhat contradictory, right?
It is.
Here or we counterintuitive,
have this, again. And then yet it does make sense that the chilies and, a lot of ginger and any of those really warming spices, hot, spicy foods, really salty, really sour, foods,
all my favorites.
Foods. All of that sort of thing will add to the heat that's already in our bodies.
Yeah.
So bearing in mind,
and the way we see that manifest is loose stools, skin irritations, pimples on the skin, digestive distress. Just feeling kind of gross in our stomachs.
Yeah.
So our digestive systems are so linked to our environment and linked to our diets. But one thing that I've done, particularly during the summer months and actually during spring, is the old principle in Ayurveda is breakfast like a prince, lunch when our digestive fire or our Agni is the highest, like a king or a queen, if you prefer, and then dinner like a commoner or dinner like a pauper. So the idea being that you eat with your digestive fire. So if your digestive fire is the highest around noon, then have your largest, most comprehensive meal around that time.
Mm.
Tapering off your digestive intake, as we say, favor light meals, easy to digest meals, away from heavy oily stuff towards dinner time. So
Mm.
what we've been trying to do is have, honestly, more vegetarian or vegetable based soups for dinner.
Mm.
So,
Beautiful.
which is for me a little bit counterintuitive because I'm quite active. I'm always thinking, gosh, I
Yes.
never eat enough protein. How do I get enough protein? Where's my next protein hit coming from? But honestly, the positive impact on my sleep quality, my
Mm.
digestion in the morning, just from having those lighter meals, is very profound. It's really
Mm.
profound.
And I think the other thing is too with pitta and meal times is pitta's not the best constitution to skip meals or eat erratically.
No.
Pitta really does need 3 dependable, reliable meals
Yep.
daily.
Yep.
So eating regularly, just as a basic, is very, very helpful for in the summertime
Yes.
and for pitta constitution.
Yeah, and the thing is, remember, here's the interesting, again, probably counterintuitive point. If you leave the stomach empty in high pitta times, or if you've got a high pitta constitution, you create more acidity in the stomach, which creates more digestive issues, which creates more pitta
Yes.
manifestations like the skin, like the gut, like all of these kind of things, which again, it's really counterintuitive because you think, okay, well, if I don't eat anything, then my digestive fire should settle down, but it's actually the opposite that
Yeah,
happens.
no, that's right. It's really fascinating. So we're working with foods that are cool in temp and or
Yep.
cooling energetically. And for
Yes.
those, I think, listeners who haven't looked a lot into Ayurveda, it can be likened to leaning on more alkaline foods.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
there's
So
just going for
I
alkalizing.
think as Westerners we probably understand the concept of alkaline foods a bit better.
I
So
think so.
the great example that I always think of is aloe vera. So aloe vera juice, which I have in the fridge, right? Buy the organic form. Buy it with no additions, no polysorbates, no preservatives, ideally, and just keep it in the fridge. Don't worry about
Yeah,
any of the chemicals that you
beautiful.
need to preserve it.
Yeah.
Have a shot in the morning, and
Mm,
think about when you drink it. Think about, or just almost imagine its properties. Right, it's a little bit
mm,
viscous. It's very cooling,
mm,
particularly when it's from the fridge. It's slightly astringent. It's
mm.
slightly sweet. It's the ultimate
Mm.
cooling drink, if you like, when you think about it
It's
characteristically.
perfect.
Mm.
Yeah, and cucumber, for example, as a vegetable.
Yes, same
Um,
properties, exactly.
yes, and as a fruit, watermelon, very it's a plenty of water content, very
Yep.
moist, and cool, naturally sweet. Yeah, it's beautiful, and I think just following seasonal eating, if you can manage to seek out the sources of seasonal produce, whether they're
Yep.
farmers markets or the greengrocer. Um, I know it's confusing because Woolworths will bring us watermelon all year
Yeah.
round, but
Yeah.
trying to lean into seasonal
But
fruit and
just, I
vegetable
mean,
will.
look, we're all intelligent people. I think if you're confused by what's on display in sort of the mainstream grocery context, just do a 1 minute Google. Seasonal, what's in
Correct.
season near me, fruit and vegetables in season near me, and you'll get a list, and you go, okay, cool, just shop from
Beautiful.
that list. Shop from that
Beautiful.
list.
I mean, in the summertime, we get a lot of squash and zucchini, and
Right.
they steam really well, and you can feel, they're really watery and light, but
Yep.
nourishing. Um, and yeah, so that's another good example. And I love, I love coriander's in season now. So we've got lots of
Yeah.
coriander. It's really cooling. I love
Super
coriander,
cooling.
cilantro. Some people call it cilantro. I mean,
Yep.
my naturopathic mind goes into all the beautiful things that coriander does, including helps us chelate our heavy metals,
That's right.
which is really exciting. But that's another really beautiful additive. So if we're making our salads or steaming our vegetables and adding perhaps a little bit of
Throw some
coconut oil
coriander in.
and
Yeah.
a little curry on top, or a
Hmm.
few slices of fennel because fresh fennel's in season, or a few dill tips,
Totally.
basil. Turmeric's
Totally.
lovely because it is actually sweetish and
Hmm.
cooling,
Hmm.
so anti-inflammatory. We can do a
Yep.
lot with our turmeric.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so here's a curly one for you. So there are so many diet ideologies out there.
There are.
And
It's very
it's
confusing.
so it's bloody confusing, and particularly even as someone in the professions or someone like us who kind of does this for a living, you know, the conflict between, am I fasting, am I paleo, am I keto, am I vegan, am I carnivore, you know, I think this is all incredibly
FODMAPs.
confusing. So yeah, FODMAPs. And look, so here are some principles, and I think, you know, we don't all have to eat like an Indian population. That's probably number one, which I'd say with Ayurveda. So one of the misconceptions about Ayurveda is, I'm going to be eating ghee and lentils and dal and rice and stuff. That's absolutely available to you if you want to include that as part of your diet, but you do not have to start eating like a South Asian person unless you absolutely want to. So there are principles of these concepts that can be applied to a very standard sort of a healthy Australian diet. So as you said, you know, lots of salads, but then include some culinary herbs or some vegetable soup. So leek and potato soup, right? So that's something we do leek broccoli and potato soup. We do a lot of that because it's so nourishing. It's so easy. It's so fast at the end of the working day to kind of just have that as an option. You can also freeze these things and gently reheat them if that's something you want to do. But I can absolutely say that you know, I love Indian food. I love Sri Lankan food, South Asian food, but we would only eat it probably once or twice a week. So you don't have to become Indian to embrace these principles. So that's probably concept
No,
number one.
absolutely not. And there is a downside to some of the Indian cooking too, in
Yeah.
that a lot of it, there is a lot of deep frying and also a
Yep.
lot of chili. And closer to the equator, that is used, all those really heating herbs, heating spices, they're used for the antibacterial, the antibiotic, all of
Yes.
those, that gut support that
Yep.
people really need. Um,
Yep.
Whereas that can really go against us in this season. And I think
Mm.
going back to your point, Gabe, about a 1 minute Google on what's
Yeah.
alkalizing or what's in season, or you can also look at, cooling foods and
Yeah.
pull up a list of cooling energetics. I mean, I know that red lentils, for example, are cooling. A couple of other
Yep.
legumes are classified as heating. Now, that can get a bit complex, but red lentils, for example, make a wonderful dal. I make
Yeah.
a dal, triple the recipe every now and again on a Sunday, freeze
And
3
just throw
batches
some in the
away
freezer. Exactly.
so that we have nourishing food on busy
Mm-hmm.
days, and then we add our ghee to that, and I make a nice
Yep.
salad to go with it, and the
Perfect.
rice will cook in not much time. So I think it is a busy time of year, and
Yep.
people are trying to take care of themselves, and yes, those hacks are really helpful.
Mm. So the other thing,
Yeah.
the other comment I wanted to make is that, you know, we've talked a lot about having more fruits and having more sweet foods and so on. And perhaps there are some people in the audience who might be saying, I'm trying to lose weight. You know, why are you telling me to eat fruit when everyone else I've spoken to says minimize the amount of fruit I eat and all of this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
my comment to those individuals would be moderation. So
Absolutely.
just kind of things you can take to the bank if you like, which people always laugh when I say that. Favor plants. So leafy greens, as we said, you know, the cucumbers, the fennels, the corianders, the Chinese greens, the broccolis, the kales. Eat as much as you want. They're full of fiber, they're full of
Absolutely.
phytonutrients, they're full of polyphenols, they're incredibly good for you from a digestive point of view. They're nutrient dense but calorie light. So you can afford, even if you're trying to lose weight, you can afford to go nuts with plant-based foods. So that's
Absolutely.
principle number one. Principle number two: favor some form of high quality protein. Now, if you eat meat, that's a piece of, you know, lean organic protein. If you're favoring vegetarian sources, you know, as you said, Sarada, that's some beautiful lentils or some high quality tofu or some high quality tempeh or something that you're comfortable eating. But you still need protein, particularly as we get older. We need more protein,
Yeah.
and none of us seem to get enough. And then the moderation piece is, okay, a little, you know, some high quality fats, as you said, coconut oil, olive oil, and so on. And I would
Ghee.
put the sweet, if you ghee, exactly. If you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to manage your weight or get to a healthy weight, moderation around the intake of fruits would be a great idea. So
Absolutely.
still
Absolutely.
get them in, but don't have 7 mangoes. You know, just have,
No, that's
half
right.
have
I
half a
mean,
mango.
absolutely. And I think I like to lean on brown rice, whole grain rice.
Yep.
I think it's a really such a dependable staple. It's extremely nutrient dense. and it has
Yep.
that complex carbohydrate, so it'll slowly release energy for the system. I like your example of the leek and potato and broccoli soup because the ratio of potato could be downplayed with a higher ratio of broccoli in
You got it.
there,
You
and
got it.
yet you've still got a bit of substance to ground you. And I think
Feel nourished and
groundedness,
grounded. Exactly.
yes, and
Exactly.
then have that half a cheek of mango as a sweet treat. And
Yep.
Ayurveda does go into specifying naturally sweet foods
Mm-hmm.
versus sugar in peak
Mm-hmm.
season.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, it's
So what
beautiful.
about what about dairy? Dairy is always controversial. Should I have dairy? Should I not have dairy? I think Ayurveda. I mean, and I think this sort of harkens back to, as we said, the Indian diet. So Ayurveda does absolutely revere the role of high quality organic dairy, particularly things like ghee, which is clarified butter. For those of you who
Yes.
haven't heard that term before, but again, really think about it in terms of moderation. So some of us are better with dairy, some of us are not good with dairy. I personally have a dairy allergy of some sort. So if I do have dairy, I'll have really high quality organic yogurt, or I'll have a little bit of ghee or that kind of thing. One thing to think about is don't combine your fruits with your dairy.
With
That's generally
especially in
frowned
summer.
upon, especially in
Yeah.
summer.
Yes.
So yeah, just kind
Yeah.
of keep those things separate. But if you can
Mm.
tolerate dairy and you enjoy it, a little bit of high quality organic dairy is actually not a bad thing during these
Yeah, and I
months.
think a small amount of cultured yogurt, so
Yeah,
natural
beautiful.
yogurt, and if a natural sweeteners needed, maple syrup or a little bit of raw honey or something.
Totally.
Um,
Yeah, totally.
Ghee is usually tolerated,
Yep.
but maybe not the hard cheeses. And in any case, I think a lot of cheese at this time is,
It's not a great idea.
yeah, that's right, tricky
Yeah.
at Christmas parties, but yeah,
Well,
go for the
this is a
hummus
good
with the
this
veggie sticks.
that's it. This is a good lead into
Hmm.
your. I mean, you're really our beverages expert. So
Beverages.
why don't you
Yeah,
take us
so
through some of the
it's
things to remember?
it's an interesting time of year because, as you mentioned already, Gabe, Australians love to go for a cold beer or a glass of wine or
Mm-hmm.
something. And in Ayurveda, obviously, alcohol and caffeine is very
Mm-hmm.
heating and very drying, which equates to a dehydrated system, which then, as you mentioned earlier, has the impact on the digestive system. We stop eliminating. And we
Yep.
can't digest our next meal, and then of course our system becomes
Or even
sluggish.
if we digest it, this is the key, right? So the first things my teacher always told me was, we are not what we eat, we are what we absorb. So
Mm.
I could eat the best possible meal, but if my digestion's out of whack and I don't absorb the nutrients from that meal, I may have digestive imbalances. I may further disrupt my digestive system and my microbiome. But the key thing, which sort of keeps me up at night, to be very honest with you, is I don't get the nutrients from the food that I'm eating. Or I don't get
No,
all
the
of them.
depletion. That's right, the depletion there. And if you're putting all this effort into high
Yeah,
nutrient, low calorie food or
yeah,
medium calorie food and really good quality food, and you're doing your best, you really do want your body to be transforming that into the micronutrients and the energy that
that's it.
helps us to be our best self.
That's
So
it.
I guess the bottom line is drink plenty of water,
Yep.
room temp wherever possible, or just not too cold. We
Yep.
want to lean on really icy drinks in summer. We want to really ice up everything and cool down, but that actually doesn't necessarily work for our Agni, our digestive
Mm-hmm.
fire. That can also disturb our Agni. So we lean
So
on
cool or room
cooling
temperature,
herbs.
but not
Not
iced.
super icy. Of course,
Yep.
the occasional super icy something as a treat is
Yeah.
most of us can get away with that. But if we're just drinking icy after icy after icy, then that is going to impact the way we digest our next meal.
Yep.
So we tend to hydrate in between meals and not throw a lot of water back
Yeah.
alongside
So
food.
generally keep liquids away from meals, right? Unless it's soup, of course.
Or sipping, sipping,
Mm-hmm.
someone with really working on their improving their digestive system might sip a digestive tea,
Mm-hmm.
such as tulsi tummy or tulsi
Yep.
ginger, during their meal, or they might start sipping that while they're preparing their meal and then
Yeah.
finish
Nice.
it during their meal.
Nice.
to specifically support the stoking of the agni, the digestive fire. But
Mm-hmm.
the bulk of our drinking takes place on rising. We want to hydrate really well,
Yeah.
and in between our meals. And
Can I
then
just double click on that drink on rising? So that's a really important one because, guys, you think about it, we've been asleep. We haven't been taking any water on board typically, unless we drink something during the night, for up to 8 hours or 9 hours in some cases. Your body is almost in a state of kind of dehydration by the time we wake up. So exactly right, as Sarah said, one of the first moves that I generally recommend for people is, the biggest glass in the kitchen, fill that up with filtered water. You could squeeze a beautiful fresh cut lime in there, or some mint, or a bit, ideally lime is a really good way to go, and just try and get that into you within the first 30 odd minutes after you get out of bed.
yeah, and the other thing that I like to use as a guide, Gabe, is the what is my urine doing?
Yeah.
If the urine is dark in color or
Mm-hmm.
has an odor to it, chances
Mm-hmm.
are we need to drink more water. If
Yep.
it's running clear or close to clear and relatively odor free, then chances are we're relatively hydrated. We're more
Yep.
on the hydrated side. Um,
Yep.
Statistics say most of us are dehydrated to a
Yeah. And
degree.
if you're feeling thirsty, you're already well into dehydration.
And in summertime, we tend to think, oh, I'm really thirsty, so I'm going to hit it with the icy
Yep.
cold water. But that actually
Yep.
stops us from properly hydrating. What
Yep.
allows us to truly hydrate is that room temp water.
Yep.
If
And
it's
just sip
straight
it,
out of the
and
filter.
just sip it as you go
Yeah,
along. So
yeah,
don't kind of, as you said, don't get there, and because you just end up going to the bathroom 40 times, don't get there and just scull that liter of water and, okay, job done, I'm on with my sort of day. You almost want to have, as I do, and I know you do as well, you've
yes,
got you've got
yeah.
your companion
Got two
you've got
here.
your
Yeah,
companion with you at all times.
yes,
And my kids roll their eyes at me because I basically just take that everywhere. um,
yes.
and that's not because
Yeah.
I'm disciplined, it's because I'm ill-disciplined, and if I don't have it with me, I won't do it.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's really handy to have it, and when it's room temp, we can truly know when our thirst has been quenched
Yeah.
because we can drink more. The chill of the water, the icy water, doesn't stop
Mm-hmm.
us. What stops us is that I've had enough water now.
Yep.
I've filled
Yep.
my tank, and
Yep.
we can drink and drink and drink
Yep.
until our
And we
thirst has
know, I
been
mean, we spend a
quenched.
lot of time on this, but the impact of dehydration is not just, oh, I feel thirsty. The impact is cognitive function, as you said, digestive
Yes,
function, circulatory
yes,
system, elimination goes down, kidney function
yeah.
obviously is impacted. So
Production of our
naturopathically
blood.
and ayurvedically, it cannot be overstated the importance of adequate
Yeah,
hydration.
absolutely.
And I
And
know,
then,
and I'm sure you guys are like us. You're probably very big on the investment in filtration.
yes, really good quality. The best quality
Yep.
filter that you feel you can afford.
Yep.
Change the filters, change the cartridges. Do what you can to
Yeah.
use the best quality water you can afford. And I think bear in mind that if we're taking caffeine or alcohol, that is dehydrating in and of itself. So
Yep.
we actually need to add more. So
Mm.
on the days where we're having that glass of wine or those couple of beers or whatever, then we add in some extra water.
Hmm.
I mean, there is a rule, a guide. For every cup of tea or coffee containing caffeine, we take an extra glass of water on that day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we try to hydrate to make up for the dehydrating effect of caffeine.
Of those
So yes,
compounds. Yep.
and a lot of people really rely on that morning cup of coffee, to
Hmm.
eliminate and to clear their head and for all reasons. So it's just bearing in mind that when you do go out the door, grab an extra vessel.
Yep.
Have your filtered water in it, or I mean, this is my hot Tulsi for the morning. But then I also
Yep.
have a cool brew here, which I'm leaning into more now as the weather warms. I will be doing much more of this. I've got a jar of
What's that? Is that
just
a
filtered water
licorice?
from. This is actually a sweet rose.
Ah,
So
nice.
I'm leaning on the cooling herbs
Yeah.
in my Tulsi tea. I'm leaning on the blends that have the cooling herbs in there.
Hmm.
So rather than Tulsi ginger, turmeric ginger, lemon ginger, some of those warming brews, I'm leaning
Hmm.
on Tulsi peppermint, Tulsi sweet rose, pomegranate green, honey
Yep.
chamomile, original,
Yep.
green tea classic for those who like some caffeine in their tea. Now, this is actually a cool brew, Gabe. I actually didn't brew this on boiling water. I just took filtered
Aha.
water from the tap. Now, this is something that I will often do, and then I'll head out the door. So I might have my
I didn't
water
know that was I
bottle.
didn't know that was possible.
It's
So
even
you don't
possible.
actually need to brew it.
So if we wanted to be perfectionistic about it, we would brew it. We would make it up in a teapot. We would wait for it to
Got
cool,
it.
and then we'd take it in our vessel, or we'd put it in a hot flask.
Yep.
But if it's a matter of having it in our systems versus
Yeah.
missing it altogether, then this
Yep.
is the best that we can do. I mean, this one will go cool. I made this up hot. This is Tulsi Go to Cola. I love the brew for
Yep.
the nootropic effects of,
Yep.
these herbs. So the brain and cognitive and memory and recall enhancing.
Two of my favorites.
But yeah, but for me, across the summertime months, I naturally go to put the kettle on less. But I still
Yeah.
want these herbs in my system because Tulsi is in Ayurveda, she's the queen of herbs. I
Yep.
want the compounding effect of this incredible herb in my system
Hmm.
365 days of the year. Now, we
Yep.
know that Tulsi is stress relieving and we know that Tulsi is immune boosting.
Yep.
And we know that, stress levels can run high at any time of the year, particularly leading up to Christmas and the end of the year.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
you think
but
about what you're trying to do. I'm sure you're the same as us. You know December's looming. You know that in our case, the whole of Australia shuts down for just about the month of January. So you want to get a lot done. And
yes,
what am I doing for school holidays? Have I booked all the classes for the kids and yada yada yada. So it is. It seems like every month is a busy month, but it's a particularly busy time of year. This November
yes,
December time.
it can get
Um,
really quite crazy.
yep.
Yeah, so
So
for me, I'm
I think
thinking
any support we can
that's
give
right.
ourselves.
That's
Yep.
right. And to pace ourselves and the simplicity of brewing a good
Yep.
quality herbal tea, whether we
Yeah.
drink it hot, warm, or room temp, or at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I might put 2 ice cubes in this in order to get my children to drink it because they like the
Yep.
novelty of, it's after school, it's
Yeah.
daylight savings, it's still
Cute.
2 o'clock, it's
Cute.
really hot. And then a couple of ice cubes, maybe a couple of drops of stevia sweetener. They
Yeah.
love that.
Because that's the
And they
complaint that
think
we
it's
get
awesome.
from our clients, isn't it? Is the same as kids. With all due respect to our clients, water's boring.
Yes.
I can't force myself to drink all of that water.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pee too often. And
Yes, yeah. That's an interesting social challenge, I think, because people feel a little self-conscious about leaving their
yep,
desk to go back to the bathroom, and I don't want to drink too much because I'll have to pee more often.
yep,
But I'm actually really proud of people who can very bravely and courageously leave their desk and go and eliminate
yep,
when they need to. And in Ayurveda,
hundred
it's really
percent.
important to follow our body feelings. So if we
Yes,
need to urinate, go and urinate. But be
yeah,
proud of
hundred
yourself
percent.
because actually we should be doing that on average approximately 7 times a day. That might surprise
Yeah,
some people. That might be
yeah,
really quite radical and confronting for some people.
yeah,
So, but then
yeah,
the other thing is we can also time our hydration. So if we do, as you suggest, Gabe, we get up in the morning, we take the biggest vessel we have and we
yep,
drink that within the first half hour. Depending on what time we rise and what our morning routine is, we might get some of that elimination done before we leave,
yeah.
or at
We've got
least
time. We've got
arriving at
time.
work. Yeah.
Yeah,
So we
that's
can
right.
sort of time the way I also like to make sure if I've had a busy day, I'm doing finishing my hydration around 5, 6 o'clock
Yeah,
so that I
very good
finish
point.
my
Yeah, very good
elimination
point.
before I
Yep.
want to wind
Before you go to
down,
sleep.
and
Yeah,
I
very
don't
good
want to
point.
be up in the night.
No,
Um,
no.
but for those listeners who find water boring, um, there are some beautiful alternatives. I mean, in
Mm.
summertime in Ayurveda, we might drink some coconut water. We
Yeah.
might use some melon juice, some watermelon juice, watermelon
Yeah,
in
or
the blender
just
with
throw
water
some
and mint.
fresh mint.
Yes, or even some
Spectacular.
blueberries,
Mm.
and mint in a water vessel. A
Yep.
nice strong shot of tulsi. I mean,
Yeah.
this guy here, tulsi peppermint. It's just the most delicious mint tea I've ever experienced, and it has the incredible support of Tulsi, which I just find bewildering. As a naturopath and Western medical herbalist, I find this herb
Yep.
bewildering. We're talking about a Rasaiyana herb that's from Ayurveda. In Ayurveda, the
Yep.
Rasaiyana herbs, they're like the royalty of the
The
herbs. They're the
most treasured. The
supreme,
most treasured. Yep.
most revered. Yes, they're just. I mean, Tulsi's queen of herbs, but this is a longevity herb.
Hmm.
So as we take this, we're adding to that bank. We're
Yep.
investing in our wellness over
Yep.
time. So we're talking aging well. We're talking healthy support for our metabolism. We're talking about protecting and purifying our liver and our kidneys
Lowering
daily.
inflammation. Yep.
Correct, correct. We're
Mm.
supporting our immune system in so many different ways. We are downplaying anxiety, depression, supporting mood. We're supporting our brain function. We're adding so many antioxidants, which have just so many benefits. There's just so
Yep.
much there that I insist on using this herb
Yeah.
into the summer months.
Yep.
And I really see the benefit for people. I mean, we see people doing Tulsi 21-day challenge, 3 cups of Tulsi a
Hmm.
day for 21 days, and getting off pain meds that they've been on indefinitely for chronic pain
Yep.
and
Yep.
migraine. We see all sorts of symptoms and common health complaints just dropping away. So,
And it's such a simple
yeah,
thing to add, and
yeah.
inexpensive to add to someone's regimen as well.
Yes, and very accessible and hopefully
Mm.
delicious across the range. Hopefully, there's one, two, three, or
There's something that
more
appeals to someone. Yeah.
blends that people really
Yep.
enjoy because it is so varied. There are fruity, there are floral, there are spicy, there are herbal, some really earthy herbals. So I think leaning into Christmas parties and celebrations, we can do some beautiful mocktails with
Yeah.
coconut water
Well,
and sweet
here's the
rose
thing, right?
tulsi,
So, I
or
mean, I absolutely understand the appeal of a ice cold gin and tonic. Like, don't get me wrong, absolutely understand the
me
appeal of
too.
it. I think one of the interesting things, because historically, for the last 10 years or 20 years, we've been told, oh, look, the polyphenols in red wine are actually quite beneficial, and there's the French paradox, and yada yada yada. Unfortunately, you guys, the contemporary scientific evidence in 2023, November 2023, when we're recording this, says unequivocally there is no health benefit to any ingestion of alcohol. So just, we're not saying stop drinking. We're just saying, look, we can no longer tell ourselves that it's a health drink. It's not. It's absolutely not. Any quantity of alcohol is a toxin, and we need to then consider what we're going to be doing to mitigate the impact of that toxin, whether that's,
Mm.
as you said earlier, Sarada, increasing hydration, maybe adding in some kidney support herbs, maybe adding in some, anti-inflammatory herbs, as we said. But um, let's no longer fool ourselves that we're doing ourselves any health benefit by drinking that glass of red wine. Is it enhancing our social experience, at the Christmas party or whatever? Probably, and that's wonderful. But one of the things that I'm so impressed with sort of Gen Z, I think it is now, who are moving away from alcohol altogether and saying, I can't believe you guys used to get drunk at parties and stuff, which is which is hilarious when you think about it. So, but
That's
that's a
quite.
wonderful thing. I mean, these guys, yeah, it's
It's
incredible.
liberating for a whole generation. Yeah, particularly
Yeah,
with where there's
exactly.
been the modelling of
Yeah.
socializing goes with alcohol. Alcohol goes with socializing. But
Yep.
when I was in private practice, I used to give the number one rule when it came to alcohol. I would say one glass, make it
Hmm.
the best quality you can
Yeah,
access, and take
exactly.
as long as you possibly can to enjoy it. So you really
That's it.
do enjoy it. You really do savor it. You just sit on that glass
Yeah,
and
that's
take
a
your
great principle.
time. And
That's a great
and
principle.
so um, rather than being austere for those who are used to having alcohol
Yep.
in their part of their
In their
socializing
social lives.
sort
Yeah.
of rituals, then and then add in some other really delicious beverages. And I love walking into the health food stores now and just seeing how many
Mm.
options there are for
Yeah, totally.
zero
You've got your
alcohol.
kombuchas, you've got your ginger drinks, you've got your zero alcohol,
Yes,
gin knockoffs. You've got,
yes,
you've got. It's not like when we were sort of in university or whatever. There are so many options now that
yeah,
are
yeah.
socially acceptable, that are palatable, that are probably even beneficial health wise. If you think about kombuchas and so on. So
That's
yeah,
right.
it's
That's right.
it's
And I love the simplicity of the soda stream.
yeah,
In my family, we have special drink, and special
yep,
drink is soda stream with some lemon or lime, with a few drops of stevia, maybe an ice
beautiful,
cube, maybe a mint leaf. But it's that
yep,
that's our family's special drink.
yeah.
But it's actually really enjoyable, and there are a lot of different variations to what we can do
That's a great idea.
naturally to add to
Yeah,
our soda stream, our sparkling water, and
great idea.
that's really gentle on the planet too, because we're not buying into lots of
more
packaging.
plastic, more plastic bottles, etc., etc. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly right.
yeah.
So sorry, red wine. But
So sorry about
one,
the red wine. Dear,
so
dear red wine. So should we
let's
jump
talk
into some
about
yoga
supplement.
practices or some supplement?
Well,
Yes,
let's
please.
let's talk about supplements for a second.
Mm,
So a lot of people ask me, okay, it's summer. What should I be taking generally, or what could I take to
mm,
kind of benefit me alongside things like hydration and a light diet and so on? If you use me as the example, so again, as I said earlier, a pitta person in a pitta season, I want to be doing things to, as you said, increase my alkalinity, cooling herbs, but still getting all the benefits of the supplements that I would normally like to take. So for me, I double down on the basics. So the Aura Organic Super Greens is a 95% ACO
beautiful.
certified organic product with incredible levels of spirulina, chlorella, wheatgrass, and so on, but also adaptogens like schizandra, ashwagandha, medicinal mushrooms, and Australian native superfoods, prebiotics, probiotics, and B vitamins. So for me, we know that the greens enhance our alkalinity in our bodies. We know they're a great source of nutrition and proteins. It's nutrient dense. So again, although as we've just said for the last 30 odd minutes, focus on plant-based nutrient dense foods.
Mm,
One way to just get one or two more servings of that nutrient dense greens into your world is to take a high quality greens powder. And Aura's Organic Super Greens is regarded as one of the best ones out there, not only for its composition, but also just for the fact that it doesn't taste like cut grass, which, as we know, can be a challenge for those of us out there. And my
mm.
other favorite, which no surprises, is the Bright Mind Complex, which is a combination of
Beautiful.
organic tulsi, your favorite herb, a clinically trialed extract of Bacopa monnieri or Brahmi, and
My
an
second
extract.
favorite
So
herb.
your second favorite herb. So cognition, energy. Actually, sorry,
Mm,
it's also got organic yerba mate. So
mm,
energy, cognition, stress support, stress
mm.
adaptation. And we just completed a month or so ago a pilot clinical trial on Bright Mind Complex, which was statistically significant results in a very small sample, showing that it also enhanced, that mid-afternoon energy slump. So helped address that, help with cognition,
Beautiful.
alertness, and so on. So just a no, excuse the pun,
Yeah.
it's a no-brainer. Particularly if you're
Yes.
trying to wean yourself off that second cup of coffee, something like a Bright Mind Complex can be really beneficial. So
Yeah,
those would be
absolutely. And
probably
I
my
think
my two top recommendations.
that that's a really important point, Gabe, for those of us who really are trying to take care of ourselves, and we're really trying to be
Yep.
mindful of our caffeine intake and the support that comes from the adaptogenic herbs such as tulsi and bacopa and ashwagandha, and to help us make that adjustment, that
Mm,
adaptation to change is really beneficial. Can we just go back to the super greens or Aura super
yeah,
greens, because I just love a
totally.
really good quality super greens, and I think it's really important to know which brand can I lean on for good
Yeah.
quality, efficacious, really carefully crafted, sustainably sourced
Yep.
ingredients, and with the super greens. Can you give a couple of hacks, Gabe, for how to make sure you get your super greens in every day? Because obviously, leading into summer and Christmas season, we may be eating a few less Buddha bowls with our kale,
Yes.
etc. on top. So,
Yeah. I
how
mean, that's
can
a really.
listeners get their super greens into their
It's such a
system?
good point, and that's the common thinking right now is that we need up to 9 serves of organic fruit and vegetables a day, right? And I can 100% hand on heart tell you, I never get 9 serves a day. And I know better, you know better. You probably get it, Sarada, because you're way more disciplined than I am. But if I can get, as I said earlier, if I can get 1 or 2 serves of that 9 from something, as you said, a product I can trust that delivers on what it says on the label, then I'm pretty happy. So um, at a push, my daughter, who's 11, will take the greens in water. So it is actually that palatable.
Wow.
I can take it in water, so it blends well, it disperses well, and I think, as I said earlier, it doesn't taste like cut grass, which is really important. But for anyone, so for the normal folks out there, I use a bit of frozen banana. I'll often add a vegan protein powder as well. I'll add in, here's a hot tip: organic India moringa. I
Beautiful.
chuck in a teaspoon of moringa, which is stunning. Um, and again, just helps my overall nutrient intake plus my antioxidant
Mm,
levels. And I blend that with water.
mm.
Because of the frozen banana, you get enough consistency so it's not watery, and that is stunning. And you can replace the
It's
banana with
beautiful.
frozen blueberries or frozen mango, as we said earlier,
Mm,
whatever you like. You could throw in your fresh mint, throw in your
mm.
whatever your herbs are that you're into at that particular point, or you have in the garden, and that's
Beautiful.
that's a great that's a great additional kind of meal or half a meal,
Yeah.
um, which is, in all honesty, probably a 3-minute exercise.
Mm, beautiful. I love
So
that because I think
there's not many meals that you can whip up in under 10 minutes that have
no,
that give you that support.
no, you're right, and I think even those who are trying very hard to get their 9 fruit and veg and
Yep.
lean on more veg than fruit in the day, a lot of us are shopping in supermarkets, and
Yep.
the nutrient density of even the kale in there isn't what it used to be because the soil health isn't what it used to be. So
That's
I
it.
think that addition of the Aura super greens, and those really good quality greens add on, they're actually helping to fill the gap.
Yep.
And I think I can't emphasize enough the importance of really, we want to get that spectrum. We want to feel,
Mm,
oh, if we just imagine we've got lots of ice cube molds inside our
yeah.
body, and
Yeah.
every mold needs a different nutrient. And we go
Mm-hmm.
beyond the essential amino acids, and we go beyond all the big guy vitamins and the minerals, but we get into lots of different micronutrients.
Mm-hmm.
Those ice cube trays often are left empty in our bodies, which then leads us to crave foods, high energy foods, fatty foods,
High
all sorts of different
sugar. Yeah.
foods that we actually don't want or need.
Mm-hmm.
But we're looking for those to fill the ice cube mold. We're looking to fill
Mm-hmm.
those little tiny receptors that actually really need this very specific
Well, here's a
micronutrient.
really profound illustration of that micronutrient deficiency. Is, you think about a mum to be's cravings during pregnancy, right? So suddenly this person who maybe never wanted to eat a particular fruit or vegetable or whatever it is during pregnancy, can't even think about not getting their hands on that particular thing. And it varies for every lady, as you know. That speaks
Absolutely.
specifically to micronutrient deficiencies. So
Mm.
the body's innate wisdom is saying, "Hey, I'm trying to grow this human inside me.
Yes. And
I
I just
need
need
this
this.
micronutrient, and I need this exactly,
It has to be
exactly.
this. No, not that. It has to be
Yeah,
this.
yeah. It's
Yes,
pretty
it's
incredible. It's
very
pretty incredible.
specific. Yeah, but if
Mm.
we take, you mentioned so many really beautiful greens blended in
Hmm.
together, we are going to get, and it's a bit, for me, it's a bit like the daily practice with Tulsi, a good
Yep,
quality super green powder.
yep,
I
yep.
don't like to miss, and I don't always smoothie it up. I actually keep
Yeah,
a bottle of nudie carrot juice in my fridge. If I don't
nice.
get my greens any other way and I don't feel like doing the hardcore water thing, I'll do a
Yep.
splash of juice and a splash of water and just shake it up and get that green scoop in. If I haven't
Yeah,
made a
nice.
smoothie or if I hadn't taken it in another way, that's the best I can do. I'm happy
Yeah,
with that,
yep,
because I want those greens in my system.
yep. But I
Yeah,
think, and I think, it sometimes feels like, if you're living sort of a standard normal life in Australia, that you're trying to do these practices and you don't know if they're adding up to health, because it's very hard to, I mean, we all know when we're sick, it's not as easy sometimes to know when we're enjoying that increased or enhanced level of wellness. What I would encourage people to do is just stay the path, because
Yes.
longevity or optimal health is not one and done. It's
No.
and both naturopathy and Ayurveda teach us that it is a consistent lifestyle that has to be pursued over a period of time. And I think, I'm in my 40s. I won't comment on your age, Sarada, of course, because you always look 27. But I've noticed that
We're the
the
same age,
practices
Gabe.
the practices that I've started 10 years ago, are now starting to really pay dividends, which is
It's
interesting, isn't it?
exactly right.
It's a bit like
Yes,
superannuation.
absolutely right. I can attest to that. I started intermittent fasting when my daughter started eating 9.5 years ago. I see the
Yep.
benefits of that. I really do.
Yeah.
But it took time. And also, things like symptoms like migraines, sporadic migraines. We don't necessarily know when they've stopped. But a year
No.
or two down the track, we know, oh, I haven't had one. I didn't
Haven't had
have one
one.
at
Yep.
all last year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
so it can be very subtle, and we
Yep.
don't necessarily measure really clearly that we've made it, because we're an ongoing, evolving creature and we're a part
Yeah.
of Mother Nature. But we
Yep.
do know when our sleep starts to improve or our digestion starts to improve.
Yeah.
At some point we get to see something, a glimmer even.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
and that's, I mean, and I know I don't always keep this practice as well, but I encourage, when I do talk to clients, I'll say, look, just keep in your Apple Notes app or on your journal or whatever it is, write down 3 words about how your day went in terms of your health and how you're feeling. And what you'll notice is, as we said, like superannuation, over time you'll start to see
yes,
less negatives and more positives. And I
yes,
think that, the best reflection is, how's your energy level? Are you keeping up with the
yes,
kids when they run around the park? How's your level of stiffness when you get out of bed in the morning? Just look for those little clues that show you
yes,
you're on the right track.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
why I don't know why I got into that. I just wanted to give people a little bit of encouragement around staying the course.
Yes, I think so. And just having that faith and trusting in Mother Nature, um, through which these incredible resources have come to us,
Mm.
and having that
No, brilliant.
belief in that which is given to us by Mother Nature.
So
Um,
we're running short of time, but I
we
don't want
are.
to move. I don't want to close this conversation until you've had a chance to just talk us through a few yoga
Well, I'll keep it really
postures.
simple, Gabe. Really, really
Yeah,
simple.
please.
So basically, in summertime, we have the opportunity to include more cooling practices or
Hmm.
postures into our practice, into our asana practice. And if we're doing the heating poses, and we know which ones are there, we can feel the heating poses,
Hmm.
the warriors, and some of the, the Utkatasana, those that get the,
The
get the thighs
chaturangas.
burning and correct. So if we still want to include those in the practice, be sure to include them in the first part of the practice, and allow
Okay.
the
Yep.
second half of the practice to include more of the forward bends. Any forward bend, be it standing or seated, will bring cooling energetics to the body, and a
Hmm.
nice long shavasana at the end. So if we're used to having a 5-minute shavasana, can we make it 10 through summer?
Yeah.
If we're
Love
used
it.
to having a 10, could we extend that? And don't forget that shavasana time is so important for assimilating all of your work in your practice.
Yeah.
And some yogis are really practicing very, very diligently, whether that's really pushing their physical body or whether that's holding their physical body back.
Hmm.
And we all have our goals within our own practice of trying to bring as much centering and calm and presence as we possibly can. Sitali breath. So we round the
Mm.
tongue and we suck the air through the rounded tongue like this.
Hmm.
And we close our mouth and we breathe out through our nose. So we're sucking the air through the curled tongue to the back of the throat on the in-breath. we close our mouth and slowly take our time to breathe out. So around each day of Satali breathing can bring a very cooling effect to the body. So we could add that to the end of our practice, or maybe try that when we're waiting for our Tulsi tea to steep in the morning, or find it maybe in the car when we're driving. Just some Satali breathing. Yeah.
Love it. Well, I think we're coming up on the end of our session, unfortunately. So I guess let's leave people with the recap, right? So summer, think about the properties of summer, particularly down under in Australia: intense heat, dryness, and a little bit of moisture, right? A lot of us, like myself, have a pitta, have a heat constitution anyway. So we need to think about how can we, in a sophisticated way, introduce cooling things into our lifestyle and regimens. So cooling foods, cucumbers, leafy greens, watermelons, mangoes, coconut water, that sort of thing. Sweet, bitter, and astringent tastes. So you said coriander, obviously tulsi, asparagus, mint, fennel, those kind of things. You really emphasize, Sarah, the importance of adequate hydration. So, when we are feeling thirsty, we are already dehydrated. So making sure that we have the tulsi licorice, the tulsi mint, the coconut water, the electrolytes without sugar on our desk, room temperature, that we sip throughout the day. You gave some beautiful examples of yoga practices, particularly forward folds, digestive twists, and savasana. So adding those and prioritizing those in our weekly yoga practices. And then from a diet point of view, particularly in the evening, getting away from heavy meals and favoring things that are lighter on the digestive system, that allow us to sleep better and digest better. So things like, your vegetarian soups, or your lentils with a salad and so on. So those are what I remember. What else have I forgotten from the list we covered?
Yes, today? The hydration. And I think don't forget your Aura Super Greens.
Get
your Aura Super Greens. I mean, we've got a special discount code for listeners.
We have.
Your time is valuable. We really value your interest, our listeners, and our listeners' time. And so it's our special gift to you. We've got Aura Cross OI Summer. Grab your Super Greens, grab your Bright Mind Complex.
And that's 20% off, I think, isn't it?
Yes, correct. That's correct.
Yeah,
and
great.
Grab your Cooling Tulsi blends for summer. Stock up for summer. And maybe, I mean, a lot of this is too much information for listeners. We covered a lot. Maybe just pick two things and give yourself the consistency of following through, and enjoy the success of achieving the two things that you choose to take out of this and follow through. And write to us. We'd love to hear from you. What are those two things? How did you feel after 21 days of Tulsi, or after taking
the greens,
the superfood green, super greens? We love to hear from our customers, and I just wish everybody a truly well summer.
Yeah, I second that. I mean, I think it can be such a wonderful time to have the space with those longer days to really focus on your health, and maybe get in the ocean if you're near the beach, or drive to the beach and enjoy that. So
and some really early morning walks, late evening walks, just gentle walking after a meal. That's a beautiful Ayurvedic practice to enjoy the longer twilights, and a post meal walk.
Love it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gabe. Great to talk to you.
Likewise.
Wonderful to share.
Thank you. So if you leave your browser window open, that'll upload in the background, but I think we're almost uploaded.
Great.
Thank you. That was great.
Thank you. So much fun. I just click leave, or no, I don't click the hang up.
Click leave. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then you're good to go.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Take
See
care.
Ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.